Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our January the 21st City Council meeting. Now call this meeting to order. I trust that your cell phones have been placed on silent. At this time, I'm going to ask our Vice Chairwoman, if Chairwoman Hill, if she'll lead us in the pledge and invocation, if she so desires.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would like to recognize our mayor, Mayor Tim Kelly. Thank you for being here. You don't have to say anything right now. I just want to recognize you. And it's my understanding you're going to be saying something at the Budget and Finance Committee. Is that correct? Okay. All right. We have no special presentations this afternoon, but I think we do have a birthday on this council. Is that correct, Councilman Hester?
Yes, sir.
Is today your birthday? Well, we have a new chorus. We have a new chorus director. If you'd like to lead us in happy birthday to Councilman Hester.
Do it. All right. Loud and ugly, y'all. Come on in. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Councilman Hester, and my apologies to the audience. Could I get a motion on the minutes? All right, with no objections, minutes will stand as they are recorded. So this evening, we do have a Budget and Finance Committee meeting concerning a budget ordinance amendment, and then we do have Parks and Public Works Committee as well. We will take a brief recess once we finish this order of business here. Council, if you look at this week's agenda, under final reading, we have several of our zoning requests on second read. Anything that needs to be brought to the attention of the council at this time under second read? All right, if not, moving into first read, we have one under Public Works. Councilwoman Hill, are we ready to address this one?
No, I'm going to be moving to defer that one more week until the 28th. We are negotiating a conservation easement. It's going very well.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am. Moving into resolutions, we have a couple from the council office. Moving into economic development. Chief, I think we may have one deferral this afternoon.
Yes, sir. We would ask that we defer for 1 week the pilot related to Novonics.
Okay. Council, any questions for the chief on the deferral request for the pilot agreement? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, then we do have an appointment under the mayor's office under planning a special exemption permit. Councilwoman Dolly, I'm sorry, I didn't see your light.
Oh, that's okay. I had a comment about the special exceptions permit.
Okay.
Regarding that, I've deferred that a couple of times, and after reviewing it, because I wanted to do a little more research on it, given that it's on Rossville Boulevard, which is only 2.1 miles, one of the things that staff does is they review it to make sure the proposal is consistent with the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the area. Given it's Rossville Boulevard, it has 2 adult-oriented businesses, 2 liquor stores, 8+ stores that sell beer, 2 within 1,000 feet of this location, 2 predatory lending locations, as well as a pawn shop. In addition to it being a high-traffic area, and it's only the church across the street from it is only 20 feet outside of the buffer. I do plan to deny this evening, but I wanted to put on the record the reasons why. And additionally, it does not promote sustainable development of the Rossville Boulevard corridor. So as we move forward, I wanted to make sure that those reasonings were on the on the record so we can all know what those are. And not to mention that there are no pharmacies, our CVS, our Walgreens closed on Rossville. There are multiple used car lots. There's a lot of blight. It's just a lot of things going on that are not suitable for that area. And I don't think this particular investment is not one that we would like to see, given that we have so many other not so healthy things happening on Rossville. So
Okay.
I just wanted to make note of that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Phil, for the assist.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving into police, we have a donation for, I think, one or a couple of Harley Davidsons. Then Mr. Attorney, under other business, I guess that this certificate of compliance would go with
The special exception permit, yes,
exception.
sir.
So if we deny that, we would not need the certificate of compliance.
Correct, sir.
Okay. All right, council, if that is all for this week, if you will look at your January the 28th proposed agenda. All of our items on first read this week will be on final read next week. We do have a couple of items under first read next week. One is our finance, I think our amendment to the budget. But Chief, are we not going to, I think we're going to move that back a week, correct?
Yes, so we will need to do the public hearing, which I believe that our attorney informed us would need to be held on February the 4th. So we'll work with the attorney to get that rescheduled.
Yeah, so we're going to do the public hearing on February the 4th, and then the first read for the amendment.
The week
on
after.
February the 11th.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Attorney, this item needs to be, this finance item needs to be moved to February the 11th.
Okay, sir.
Item 8A.
And that'll give us 10 days of notice. That'll be fine.
Yes. Okay, moving into planning item. Any questions or concerns under this planning item? Councilwoman Coonrod? You good? Okay. All right, moving into resolutions. We have a couple of items under economic development, Family Justice Center, and then the mayor's office. Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you. Item B, the item around our new pilot policy. I think we're making a lot of good headway. I get the impression from economic development staff that they're getting a lot of good feedback, but I have a feeling that this won't be ready for a vote next week. That's just a feeling I have.
Chief, is this something that we want to go ahead and move to the following week rather than?
That's fine. As we stated before in our initial presentation, we want to be collaborative with the city council. It was always a priority for the mayor to be able to do, for us to be able to bring you a policy that you could be proud of. So we want to make sure that we can address all of your questions and concerns before we take it to a vote.
And I'm not at this point saying that I know how long it should be deferred, but I think that I anticipate it would be.
So do we just want to go ahead and move it to, at this point, to February the 4th?
Let's do that.
And then we can always bump it again. Mr. Attorney, if you would, that's item 9B, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? Let's put item 9B on February the 4th as well.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good. Chief, thank you. All right, I think that covers everything on next week's proposed agenda. Council, if you'd take a look at your purchase items for this week, if there's any questions concerning any of the purchase items that are on your sheet for this week. Not seeing any questions, moving ahead to our 3-week future considerations. Anything that you need to bring before the council at this time? Okay. I'm not seeing any. This time I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Smith for our Budget and Finance Committee.
Mr. Chair. We will call to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
All right, motion and a second. Without objection, Madam Clerk, the minutes will stand as recorded. Thank you very much. We have one item of business to cover today. It is an ordinance. First read, it was set for next week, but it will be moved to the 11th so that we can have the public hearing on February 4th. And with that, Madam Clerk, please read 8A.
An ordinance to amend the operations budget ordinance number 14118, known as the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 operations budget, to amend sections 5 and 5A so as to appropriate $29,907,500 from general fund reserves, of which $11,907,500 to various capital projects, increase contingency appropriation of $18 million for one-time payment to the Fire and Police Pension Fund, to provide for reallocation of appropriations to the Department of Innovation Delivery and Performance following administrative decisions which have resulted in the dissolution of that department, to reallocate appropriations between certain departments, and to amend Section 7D due to administrative changes during fiscal year 2024 through 2025, to reallocate available appropriations for certain new or changed positions.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Mayor, I believe you would like an opportunity to open the conversation on this item, and unless that's why Chief was on his way up here to jump in ahead of you, I'm not sure.
Thank you very much. He just got my seat. Well, listen, I very much appreciate your consideration of this supplementary budget. It's somewhat unusual, but candidly, as y'all know, I came into office talking about efficient, effective government. It's taken me a little while to get a full grasp of the way that we do finance the city of Chattanooga. The good news is we have been very conservative in the way that we run the budget, and that's a good thing for sure. But, my goal as mayor is to make sure that we're running things in the most capital efficient manner possible. And frankly, we haven't so much done that. We have a number of really key strategic priorities here that we really don't need to wait until the next budget to address. Many of these, as you'll hear, Weston will come up behind me and talk about the details and answer any questions you have. But many of these, in fact, 73.4% of the 11.9 million are really for strategic capital projects specific to critical infrastructure and public safety. And we will, of course, run through those in detail. The balance, frankly, are all things that we deem to be very, very important to the city's strategic priorities. And most importantly, perhaps, is getting our police and fire pension into a better fiscal position. When I talk to the controller up in Nashville, that's the one thing that worries them more than anything. And we need to get that thing, if not fully funded, better funded until we can get on top of it. And again, 18 million of this will go to shore up the police and fire pension fund, which I know our first responders appreciate, and we think it's the right thing to do. It's also insurance to maintain our great bond rating. It's the one thing that we hear from the bond rating agencies that worries them. Again, for those that think we're raiding the piggy bank here, we're going to leave a ton of money, more so. You guys established some time ago a minimum level of, I think, 16-17% capital retention. I've got a lot of friends in the municipal bond market. They tell me the real level is about 7, so that's already a very conservative figure. This will leave us at 26% of retention. So we will have plenty of money left in the rainy day fund, but it is, frankly, your money to decide what to do with. You guys hold the purse strings, so I just appreciate you hearing us out, and just know that my team worked really, really hard to put this supplementary budget together to further drive the priorities of our One Chattanooga plan. And again, these are all kind of one-time monies, but I think you'll see that they're all very thoughtful and targeted, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before you go and we start the presentation, I know we have a good one from your staff. I just want to say thank you. There's been a lot of opportunity since I've been elected to this seat to be bold and to put the people's money back into the community to do what they need done with that money. And we've gone a long time without doing that. So I just want to say thank you and
very
look
welcome.
forward to the presentation for everybody to hear what it is that you're planning on utilizing those funds for.
Thank you, thank
So
you very
thank you.
much. And I appreciate your consideration. I'll get out your hair.
Appreciate it. The Chief, did you just give him a shove?
No, I was just,
It looked kind of like it. No?
no. Absolutely not.
It looked like a shove. Okay.
Here's to awkward moments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to start off, we're going to be presenting today. It'll be Mandy Green, our Chief Operating Officer, and Weston Porter, our Deputy Chief Financial Officer, and myself. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Porter to come up to kick off the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. As was mentioned, we're here today to propose an amendment to the FY25 operating budget. And the mayor did a good job kind of summing up where we're coming from. Get the slides going here. So during the FY25 budget process, conversations were had around the strength of our financial reserves and the overall strong financial position that the city was in. At the end of FY24, so we're talking June 30, 2024, the general fund reserves were at 43%. And as the mayor mentioned, back in 2006, the council set a general fund balance minimum at 15%. So 43%, we were well above that council set policy. We went a little bit beyond that, and we reached out to some different advising firms. PFM, who's an advisory group that the city uses on a number of different things, recommended 16%. GFOA, which is another governmental advisory group, recommends 16.6%. And the Tennessee Comptroller recommends 2 months, which again gets you about 16.6%. So at the end of FY24, we were far above what the recommended balance was by all of these different groups and kind of the best practice. Why now? The mayor really mentioned, hit on that already, but to kind of maximize the benefit of the funds that we have and really generate a tangible benefit to residents. Also, the cost savings as far as waiting to do the projects versus doing them now. We feel like we can make better use of those funds by going ahead and investing those monies now that we have for the community. It was mentioned before, the ask, so this proposed amendment is for $29,907,500 from general fund reserves to fund $18 million going to the pension fund for fire and police to help shore that up and get us to that 60% that the mayor mentioned that the comptroller would like to see us at. It would also help with the PFM and with the bond rating. That was one of the areas they dinged us on, was the high carrying cost for the city was at a AA plus rating as opposed to the AAA. And that big piece of that carrying cost is the fire and police pension fund. So this will help shore that up a little bit. The remaining $11.9 million will be for strategic capital projects outlined by Mandy here in just a minute, broken down in these buckets: 73% for critical infrastructure and public safety, 12.6% for community development, housing and parks, 8.1% for tech innovation and local economy, and 5.9% public health, education, and mobility. So after this amendment, after the $29.9 million leaves the reserves, it'll still leave us over 26%, which again is 11% over the city's policy and 10% over the benchmarks best practices provided to us. This is just a bit of a graphical representation of that. So at the end of FY24, June 30, 2024, you'll see fund balance reserves at $153 million, which is again over 43% of revenues. With the FY25 budget as originally voted on was 35, our percentage was at 35%. And then with this amendment, takes us to fund balance of 88 million, which gets us to 26%. And so to kind of go into a little more detail and what those percentages and what the money's going to, Mandy's going to come up and give a little more specifics and answer any questions that you might have on some of them.
All right, good afternoon, council.
Good afternoon.
Mandy Green, Chief Operating Officer. So we're going to go through some of these budget requests. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the critical infrastructure and public safety. So we have $360,000 detection for intersections. Those are LiDAR cameras. That gets us to 15 detection cameras for that. $50,000 for mobile traffic count trailers to manage our traffic and see where we're at. $500,000 for the Modern Traffic Management Center. That will be a center that we can regulate and remotely handle traffic intersection lights. UTC has something very similar right now. This would be a great addition for us, especially when we have accidents, sports events going on, and then inclement weather. And then we have $200,000 for streetlights upgrade. That is a partnership project with the Path Company and EPB, looking at trading out the non-LED lights that we have currently into LED lights, as well as a solid platform so that we can look at all the streetlights at one look. It'll also help EPB, if there's an outage, be able to respond faster to constituents. That's a really great thing. That's a pilot project. And then $632,000 for the Lookout Valley infrastructure upgrade, and that is to deal with the things you've been hearing about these last couple of weeks about the incidents that happened in Lookout Valley and off of 24, Interstate 24. $200,000 for CPD property room upgrades and HVAC upgrades. That will help them to organize their property room, as well as add fire extinguishers and all sorts of things, bug repellents, shelves, everything else for those property rooms. And then we have $120,000 for the fire department turnout gear drying racks. That'll give us about 20 drying racks. $80,000 for the fire department swiftwater rescue vehicle. That'll make sure that that program is completely shored up and everything is up to standards and where it should be. $3 million for sewer lateral street repairs. That's from the past decisions of letting individuals do the street repairs from the property line to the center line, so that way they can look at the trench settlements that people are misidentifying as potholes. $500,000 for 2 PacMac leaf vacuum trucks to pick up leaves. $500,000 for pedestrian safety from Fernway to Barton. That'll be for pedestrian safety, sidewalks, traffic calming. $1 million for Crust Road improvements. Again, those are for guardrails and for the actual pavement on the road. $700,000 for sidewalk for Cassandra Smith Road and Big Ridge Elementary. $250,000 for Rossville Boulevard beautification. That's for some decorative streetlights as well as median work. And then $150,000 for quick build, transportation and safety. Again, these are pilot projects to see what works as far as doing immediate pedestrian safety issues and traffic calming. And then $500,000 for Raccoon Mountain water infrastructure. Before I move on to the next slide, are there any questions on any of those?
I thought we might get away with one here. All right.
That was a mouthful, so I expect it.
Councilwoman Dolly.
Yeah, I just had a question about the $3 million for sewer lateral street repairs. Could you explain that one again? I'm sorry.
For the sewer lateral, so we have from allowing the individual resident to make the street repairs or the sewer repairs before we change the ordinance to make it the responsibility of the city. They would hire contractors to do those street repairs, which were not always up to code or standard, and so those have created trench settlements in the road that people identify as potholes, but they're actually sewer trench settlements. And so we have tried to fix those on an annual basis, but there's just more than we've had money for, so this is a one-time to just try to get as many done as we possibly can.
And how are those reported? Do people just call them in, or is there someone actually out as they're doing the pothole searches?
Both. So we have identified them, and then people call into 311 and let us know when they've hit what they believe is a pothole, but it's really a sewer trench settlement because they don't know the difference between the two necessarily. And so we also are looking at putting AI on our pothole trucks so that way we have a camera underneath that's going to monitor and be able to tell us where all these potholes and trench settlements are.
Okay, that works. Thank you, Mandy.
Yeah.
Good, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for that question, Councilwoman Dolly. That was, the sewer laterals were definitely on my list there. But let's move over to Chief. Are we starting to focus more as we find resources? Now, what's interesting is improvements in infrastructure has been something I know the folks in Chattanooga have been asking for dramatically. And it feels like we're moving in that direction, especially with this allocation on deck. Is that indicative of a mindset we're going to see in the future as well?
Yes, sir. And what we wanted to do was to not only be responsive to the mayor's vision for seeing some significant improvements in infrastructure, which is called for in the One Chattanooga plan, but we also wanted to be responsive to things that we had heard from constituents and requests that we had heard from you all and conversations that we've had with you all. And so whether it's the Cassandra Smith Road sidewalks to Big Ridge Elementary, or the pedestrian safety improvements from Fernway to Barton, or the Crest Road improvements over in District 9, and the sewer lateral street repairs. These are all things that we have been hearing as an administration from you all as priorities for you all as council members. And so we wanted to make sure that we were advancing the ball, if you will, on infrastructure, and also being advancing the ball on infrastructure while also being responsive to the concerns that you all have expressed.
Very good. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
Bet. Thank you, sir. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, I just want to, thank you publicly for listening to the concerns that we have, bringing forth the critical needs that we had out in Lookout Valley, particularly with the lights and the traffic situation that we encounter almost on a weekly basis, but also being receptive to the Raccoon Mountain water situation that we have there, which is a dire situation that we need to get water to those residents up there. But I appreciate your consideration in all these critical needs in the Lookout Valley area.
Well, I appreciate that. Mandy did all the work. I'm just up here as
Thank you, Mandy.
Yeah, so I'm just up here for moral support.
You good, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, no further lies. Ms. Green, would you like to continue?
I would love to. All right. Moving on to parks and community development and housing. So we have $100,000 to the Tennessee River Blueway Trailhead kiosk and parking. $100,000 to the sports turf field for Eastside Elementary. That's a match with the county and the Trust for Public Land. We have $250,000 for the Heritage Park Inclusive Playground with a county match that we're all very excited about. $100,000 for mowing equipment for municipal golf courses. $100,000 for a mountain bike pump track feasibility study. $100,000 for park signage at Glenwood, Summit Softballs, Sturchy, and I don't know if I say that correctly, and Warner Park. $40,000 for the pavilion at Lake Hills Park. $40,000 for a pavilion at Murray Hills. And then $75,000 for the CARTA feasibility study for transit-oriented development. And that's going to be, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, so we have an opportunity in partnership with CARTA, and Mr. Charles Frazier is here as well, to look at a site that CARTA owns that could potentially be utilized for transit-oriented development near the incline. And so we're excited about this. This obviously would be a significant win for the city if we could get some housing built. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff that we've been working on in regards to the supply of housing and making housing more affordable. We heard a great presentation from C&E today during strategic planning about some of the projects that they're working on. We appreciate Vice Chair Hill and all of your work with our Affordable Housing Committee. So we are looking forward to doing this feasibility study if this is approved by City Council.
All right, and the last item on this slide is $100,000 for planned expansion of the 3D printed shelter program. So we currently, I believe, have 2 3D homes, all of it Baptist. They've been good resources for some of our homeless community. We're going to focus more on the episodic homeless community versus the chronic to get them in and get them out. That's the purpose of these 3D homes. And I think that's about all I have to say on this slide. Any questions on this one before we move forward?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Councilman Hester.
Thank you to the mayor, to the administration for your ear. I know the folks, Searcy Park, Lake Hills Park, Mary Hills, those guys are excited about this, man. It's a long time coming. Thank you.
Where'd it go? There he is.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. The 3D printed shelter program, can you guys please send me some information about that? That's something that we have not been discussing within the Affordable Housing Committee, and it would be interesting to understand what your what your goal is for scale and how many units and where they're gonna go and what they're gonna cost individually. We don't have to do that now, but if you'll send it to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
We
you.
will.
Good. Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, I want to say thank you from the Great District 8. I see Warner Park is in here. That's in the Great District 8. I see Carter is in the Great District 8. And let me tell you, thank you, thank you, thank you. The Great District 8 is moving. Appreciate it.
Good, Councilwoman?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we're good. Let's keep going.
All right. All right, next, we're continuing on to parks, again, Parks, Community Development and Housing continued. So we have $120,000 for East Lake Satellite Parking Lot. We have some parking issues there. $25,000 for the Glenwood Room Divider for the gym. That's to get better utilization of the gym. $150,000, these next two items are pending feasibility studies, so I want to make sure I'm clear about that. $150,000 to the gym floor restoration and the bathroom renovation. We are doing a feasibility study on that site right now, so this will be pending that feasibility study. If we decide we're going to do something different with that building, we're not going to put any money into it before we do that, so we'll wait until that comes out. $7,500 for an ADA button for the front door at Eastdale. $50,000 for exterior lighting for Eastdale. That's for security issues. $45,000 for the Ramsey Center parking lot gate. $45,000 for the Shepherd Center parking lot gate, and that's because we've had some people congregate after hours there, and it's been problematic, and so this will help with that. And then another exciting proposal for you all is $150,000 for 3 transport vans for the Carver, Avondale, and East Chattanooga centers to help kids get back and forth to the summer camps and other activities. Any questions on this slide?
Excellent. I have one so far. Councilwoman Dolly, you're up.
Yes, for the $120,000 for the East Lake Satellite Parking Lot, where is that lot? Is it across Dodson? Where is the lot gonna be?
You know, I think it's across from it is where but I'll follow up and get you the information of exactly where it's located. I can get you a map.
Okay, and then is the property our property, or are we purchasing it from somebody?
I don't know that answer. I'll get back to you on it.
Okay, that works. Thank you. That's it.
You good,
Thank you, Chairman.
Councilwoman? All right. Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ooh, once again, y'all doing well by Great District 8 today. You have listened. I mean, I've been in your ear for a minute about my Carver. I mean, seriously, that's been high on my list since I've been in the seat. So thank you for that. Gym floor, bathroom, thank you for that. But let me tell you, when my constituents call, I jump into action and I produce real solutions. The $150,000 for the 3 vans for Carver, Avondale, and East Chattanooga. A quick story. Had a constituent call me and said she had set up a plan with the ballet department here and was not going to be able to do that because they didn't have transportation to get back and forth. And I said, say no more. It's Councilwoman Dotley, that's her phrase, say no more. Let me reach out and do what I do. And I am so thankful that not only did we get a van for Carver, but for Avondale and East Chattanooga. So the Great District 8 centers do not have to worry about transportation. Now, I would like for them all to be pink.
We'll do what we can. No guarantees. We'll do what we can.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You good, Councilwoman?
Councilwoman.
I am. Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair.
Bet.
Listen, the era of political pandering is ending for me. But just know that whenever this is complete, because I won't be in office, I'm showing up to grab the mic, baby, because I worked hard for this. Not sure who's going to be my replacement. But thank you for thinking about Eastdale.
Thank you.
Councilman Hester.
I'd like to give honor to where honor's due. Thank you, Carol, for listening. Thank you to Chris, all the administration for listening. $45,000 for Ramsey Center parking lot gate. It's much needed, even though we're going to do the study for it, but it's much needed. And thank you. Appreciate it for your foresight. Thank you.
Good, Councilman. All right, Ms. Green, moving along.
All right. All right. Now on to technology innovation in the local economy. We have $600,000 for a DOT grant match for an automated test track. This was an earmark that came from Fleischman. Includes the city of Chattanooga, the city of Cleveland, and UTC. For those of you that don't know, we have a test track that sits outside of Chattanooga State right now. It needs some repairs in order to be in fully functional capability. It's for autonomous vehicles. It's also to test grids underneath of the track for electrical charging. And so some of the revolutionary work that they're doing is vehicle to grid charging. So the vehicle will actually be electrifying the grid. So anyway, this is what that is, and the dollars for this would be refurbishing that track that is currently inoperable, and then doing studies by UTC to try to reduce emissions and make us as pedestrian safety issues, crash testing, things like that by UTC. $250,000 for retail recruitment downtown. This is an incentive program for the downtown facade. You want to speak a little bit about this?
Yes, and so this is something that the city would like to do in partnership with Hamilton County government as well as the River City Company. And so this would allow us to create a dedicated retail recruitment and facade improvement grant program for some of our vacant spaces downtown.
All right, and then $35,000 for 8A project at the Houston Museum of Arts, and that's for them to be able to get an elevator. $78,000 to create a visitors concierge booth at the Chattanooga Airport. Any questions on this slide?
I don't see any lights. Penny, thank you for getting back to me on lots of items. As I'll make some comments at the end, but this one in particular, I do want to point out, knowing that this is a grant match, because it is DOT, it's a federal grant match, we're getting a lot more for it. But going back to one of the questions that I asked, this is where the city is investing in others' infrastructure for the benefit ultimately, hopefully, of the study and what comes out of it. And just wanting to reiterate that we are careful in our contracting such that this is not a gift. If this track does not produce, if this track is not finished, if it is not built, if it is not used, we get our money back. These are the types of things we need to start paying a lot more attention to as we move forward. I think it can be a great benefit to the city, but I just want to make sure that we are paying close attention to adding clawbacks to these types of contracts as well, not just our pilots and TIP agreements.
Yes, and I appreciate that feedback. We are working hard on getting those MOUs and contracts, and as I referred to you earlier, Gerald did a lot of homework and found a university in Texas that is doing the same type of work with a city in Texas, and so we are going to be utilizing their contracts and then adding additional items that we need for us to make sure that the city is getting value out of these partnerships.
I think that's great. Thank you so much. Oh, hold on a moment. I think I have another light. Councilman, did I miss you? Councilman Ledford, I'm sorry if I did.
Chairman, thank you. Question on thank you for picking up on the tester. Is there any opportunity for us to be able to generate revenue from this track in the future for those wishing to test or utilize it to further objectives?
I don't have that information at the moment, but I can get back to you on that.
Am I thinking too far ahead?
No, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, I think UTC probably is looking at intellectual property on some of these projects that they're doing, but we will definitely look into that and see.
Sure.
Thank you for your question.
It's a unique piece of infrastructure.
It is.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good, sir. All right, Ms. Green, please.
All right. All right, so moving on to public health, education, and mobility. We would like to invest $455,000 for preliminary engineering and upgrades to co-locate the Rape Crisis Center at the Carol B. Burrs FJC. $50,000 for a feasibility study for an East Brainerd Library location, and $50,000 for a feasibility study for a new Northgate Library location as the other library has hit its end of life. Questions?
I don't see any lights, so I'm going to just take a moment here and echo what some of my colleagues have already said, talking about thank you and projects. This first item, I pressed on pretty hard and really kind of dug my feet in. We've got a lot of projects that can be done around this city, and while most of them are great, they're necessary for the community, there are things that the residents want, desire. In some cases, they feel good to have. This is beyond a necessity for our community to have. And so thank you so much for listening and responding in such a great way to me and my concerns over making sure that we are also thinking through things in our city that don't get talked about a lot, don't get a lot of attention, but are desperately needed. So thank you, and thank you to some of my colleagues who supported me when I was pushing for a lot of these upgrades. There may have been a few projects on here that were also feel good for their districts, but also agreed that we need to be doing this type of work as well as some of those other projects. So I can't thank you enough for being responsive and helping with making this happen. So I truly do appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it.
I do have another light. Chairwoman?
I'd like some more information about this co-location of the Rape Crisis Center to the FJC. I want to understand if it's going to be open 24 hours a day. I want to understand how it also works or doesn't work alongside the Rape Center at the Partnership for Families location downtown. I feel like we may have we either have some duplication of services or some holes in our services. There's something funny happening between that, and I'd like to understand it better. Thank you.
So it's been a long time vision of the FJC to have the Rape Crisis Center co-located at the FJC. And so what this is doing is it is laying sort of the groundwork for Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults to co-locate their Rape Crisis Center at the FJC because, as you know, their building is very, very old.
Yes.
Yeah, and so this lays the groundwork for that to happen. So
Okay.
there would still only be one Rape Crisis Center,
Okay.
but it would potentially be at the FJC.
At the FJC. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman?
Yes.
And Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Chairman. The feasibility study for a presence of our library in East Brainerd is very exciting. For quite a while, I've had a little fun with the administration, and folks know that we only have how many parks in East Brainerd? But that may change. That may change very soon. And so that's exciting. But we've also talked a lot about a presence for the library system. So William, thank you, because what a lot of people may not realize is that while we are here on a full day on Tuesday, Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays even, we are doing the work behind the scenes and even acting as a partial real estate agent, if you will, helping scope sites for initiatives that we feel are important for our districts. I'm very excited to hear that not only has the administration and the mayor's office took this into consideration in working with our library director, Mr. O'Hearn, is that you're listening. And these things take time. They don't happen overnight. I know I wish that they could sometimes. But when we look at the investments and the groundwork that the seeds we plant in, it takes years sometimes because they have to work through a system or find resources. I didn't say anything about the investment in the all-inclusive playground, but that's huge. That is a backstop that will absolutely push this project through and will change and impact many, many families' lives. And I appreciate it because it was on the forefront of your thinking, and I appreciate that. The East Brainerd Library location, I am so grateful that we're thinking about this, that we possibly identify a location to have a presence for folks to utilize the resources that are available through our library system and through really reinventing its use and impact into our community. So I think it's just important that we kind of tell the world that the administration and this council are working together. We are listening, and these priorities and the work that we're doing here and in our communities come to fruition through projects like this because we are collaborating together. So I just wanted to make sure that was thrown out there. And William, thank you very much for your time. We have met a lot on this, and I appreciate you taking that initiative and pushing on the mayor's office as well. So thank you, sir. Chairman, thank you.
All right, no further lights. That's great.
All right. Okay, so we're very excited about this next process, which is part of the effective and responsive local government. We're looking at optimizing operations and taking IDP, which is Innovation, Delivery, and Performance, reorging it and consolidating, and a consolidation of constituent services. So basically what this means is that IDP functionality has moved to the mayor's office and is reporting up through the chief operating officer, and then constituent services will be consolidated and report up through the chief of staff. And what that means is currently we have the mayor's email that he receives information. We have the mayor phone calls. We have constituent services. We also have 311, and we're consolidating all that information together, and we're looking at one platform to utilize so that we can actually do exactly what Councilman Ledford just referred to, which is listening and reacting to the totality of the information that we're getting from the constituents. So it's, a one-stop shop basically to get everything in one location so that we can respond effectively and efficiently to these, because we get information from 311, we get information from y'all, we get information from constituent services, from the mayor, and so this will help consolidate that all and really increase our ability to respond faster, better, and get these issues taken care of for our constituents. So that is the process there. What questions do you have about this?
I don't think anybody's disagreeing, and I don't have any lights, so we're good, thank you.
All right.
Let's keep going.
Fantastic. All right, and then as mentioned earlier, the strategic transfer to the fire and police pension, looking at $18 million to go to help close the gap to get us to approximately 60% funded. The state comptroller has recommended a 60% funding, and that's what we're looking to achieve. We know that because we are a strong fiscal position today, our dollars will help. Those dollars are more than they will be in the future because of inflation, and so that is the reason why we're investing today in this, aside from the fact that we know there's a need. What questions do you have on this slide?
Councilman Ledford.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. May I ask Mr. Hopkins to come and address, if you would, Chris, first of all, to you and your staff, this job obviously takes a toll on your physical.
It's a tough, let's just say she got her new living room furniture.
There you go. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate very much the city's intention to add that additional contribution to the pension fund, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chris, I want to know, because this has been, and in honor of my good friend Dr. Carol Burrs, I know she would ask this question, so I'm going to ask it in her honor. What impact does this have for the fire and police pension fund?
Sure. So the intention was to get us above that 60% threshold. According to our actuary, this would do that. So just very briefly, following the 2008 financial crisis, the pension fund went from essentially fully funded, and we got eventually down into the mid 40% funded rate, okay? And 60% is kind of the cutoff where below that you're in jeopardy of insolvency at some point in time.
Right.
Anything above that, and the state controller, with whom I've been in contact over the years as well. So we've made great progress, and we've actually gotten the market value of the fund as of the valuation January of 2024 to 53%, right, from 43-ish.
Yeah.
We estimate that to be about 56 and change at the beginning of 2025. So this infusion of 18 million would get us to approximately 60.5% funded.
And our target is obviously?
Realistically, our target is 70 to 80%. Once we hit 80, we can restore the rest of the COLA benefits that were changed as a result of the task force some years ago. We were on a path to reach 80% funding by about 2040. So just interpolating that would bring us maybe 2, 3, 4 years earlier into that. 70% funded by 2035. So again, interpolating, it could put us at, again, if we meet our assumed rate of return, brings us 2, 3 years closer to reaching that target. 70% considered generally reasonably healthy. 70 to 80 is perfectly reasonable for a municipal fund.
Very good. And I see that you have some of your staff with you here today, so I just want to say thank you for the incredible work that you are in looking after this fund. And I'm extremely grateful for the work you're doing for our fire and police.
Well, and I want to thank council. You guys have been very, very supportive, always made the recommended contribution, and the empty chair is kind of hard to see because we've engaged a great deal, and
Yes, sir.
with Councilwoman Burrs as well. So I appreciate the council and your support for this.
Thank you, Chris. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Chris, I mean, you may want to comment or whatever. Councilman Smith, you were here in 2013 when we had to start addressing the fire and police pension. I think at that time, as Chris alluded to, I think it had drifted down to about 42 to 43%. It was in the critical state. We had to make some tough decisions about the COLA. We had to make a commitment to an increased annual contribution from the budget. And it's been an uphill climb, but I feel like reaching 60% is almost a milestone. It sort of gets us off of that naughty list from the comptroller's office, right?
Exactly.
But it also puts us in a position, I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn, Chief, but I believe it puts us in a position that where we can start maybe looking at or considering additional pay raises. It's kind of like a seesaw when the pay goes up, the pension fund goes down. So we got to make sure that we stay at a level that we stay off the naughty list from the comptroller.
Yeah, and I'll just, if you don't mind, just in response to that, not only did the fund experience a 31% loss in its asset value in 2008, the financial crisis. So that's tough. It's hard to recover from. In addition to that, the assumed rate of return or expected rate of return, we have systematically reduced from, at that time, about 8%. In the year 2000, it was 8.25. In 1994, it was a 9%. We assumed we were going to make 9% every year. That is clearly not going to happen. Today, with your support, we're at 6.25. So that decline in the assumed rate of return from 8.25 to 6.75, I may have misspoke, 6.75 today, is responsible for about 11 percentage points of that funding status decline. In other words, if I sit here today and I assume I'm going to earn 10% over the next 30 years, I don't have to put as much in as I do if I assume I'm going to make 5%.
Yeah.
So just the actuarial assumptions were responsible for about 11 percentage points of that. And of course, the previous pay increase, every time you increase pay, you increase future liabilities, and that too had an impact on the fund. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll just add real quick, I remember those discussions in 2013, Chairman, and I also remember some rougher ones along the lines of everything being on the table to gutting the fund to just utterly devastating our first responders further than they possibly could be on that retirement fund. We've seen cities go bankrupt because of pension funds. And we were adamant that not only were we not going to go bankrupt, but we were going to improve the situation without skipping a beat for our first responders. And it's taken us a while. It's been almost 12 years, Chairman, since that time that we fought that fight to see it. So I'd say a milestone is an understatement to hit 60. And I hope that it continues to grow up, but it is the market. Just because if with this infusion we hit 60 doesn't mean we're at 60 next year. It doesn't mean we're at 60 the year after. It could be higher, could be lower. Pay raises also impact that. Pay more, fund goes down, right? It's just the nature of the beast. We just need to do our jobs to ensure that we continue to get this fund as healthy as possible so that we are able to do all those things to take care of our first responders. So thank you, Chairman, for pointing that out. Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, too, am a member of the first responders family. I am a widow of a firefighter EMT who served 19 years with the city of Chattanooga. So anything that is needed that will make life better, because when you all are good, we are definitely better. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. I have one more thing to say. I don't have any other lights at the moment, but in this conversation about the police and fire pension fund, I want to point one individual out in this room that doesn't get pointed out often, and I'm sure he appreciates that. But Jack Thompson introduced me to everything I had no idea I didn't know or could ever possibly know about the fire department, about everything related to pensions, related to positions. It carried over significantly into police as well. But I learned some of the most invaluable information to do my job up here. Didn't even need to be specifically fire department related.
Nope.
I learned the importance of being very intentional with funding and listening to the needs and knowing when dollars need to be put in certain places to not just protect our citizens, but to protect our firefighters who are protecting our citizens.
Amen.
Right down to the story won't retell because I don't think I could get through it. But let's just say we had inadequate gear back then too.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I will never forget those things. And so I just want to say, Jack, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You've been there, you're still sitting here all these years later, and you are still in communication, I promise, I'm sure, with every person up here to make sure that we know what we need to know.
That's right.
And without an individual like you
That's right.
in that seat, these types of things don't happen as cleanly and as easily. So understand the appreciation I have for you and everything that you do for the Chattanooga Fire Department, sir.
Amen.
Ms. Green?
All right. That concludes our presentation. Any further questions that you all have? I know we stopped every slide, but if anything came up after the fact?
I have a feeling we'll have a few. Vice Chair?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the specificity of the presentation. It's good to see the line item elements. But something that remains a question in my mind. I know that we have a general recommendation from GFOA for a best practice, but back in September, this council approved a study of our reserve by the GFOA. I have yet to see that study. So what I want to understand first is on slide 2, where GFOA recommends 16.6% cash balance. Is that specific to the city of Chattanooga looking at all of our liabilities, or is that a general GFOA number? And when are we going to get the report that we paid for to help us make decisions about when we're going to spend our reserve?
Thank you for that question, Vice Chair Hill. Steve Wilson for the record. That is an ongoing work that GFOA is doing for us. So the number that we're showing here is the general best practices that they provided for standard. The work they are doing currently is to provide detail specific for Chattanooga. We should have preliminary numbers by the end of this month, and then they're going to be continuing to add to the model over the next couple of months. So that's ongoing work.
So when you all first started kind of floating the desire to do a budget amendment, started out focused solely on the police fire pension. And at that point, I asked this question, and I was advised that, yes, we would have that report before we would have an amendment brought to us. So we are going to, this has been moved to be voted on in February, so can we expect that we will have the report before the public hearing on February 4th?
We are due to have the preliminary numbers by the end of the month, so we can provide those to you as soon as we get them.
Okay. I think that would be a good thing to have available to the public as well. Just for clarity's sake and a reminder, council, this was looking at, it's a risk-based analysis of our general fund reserve levels. Specifically, we had agreed that it would identify and analyze risk factors, including revenue fluctuations, extreme events, and interfund dependency. So those, to me, are all very important. When it's fun, fun is not the right word. It is gratifying as a leader who advocates for one's district to be able to make progress toward goals that we know are important in our district. And as representatives also of the entire city, it is gratifying to make progress on strategic initiatives. I'm happy about all of that, but also I always have to have that long-term hat on to use the fire police pension fund. Nobody expected, well, some people expected 2008, they just didn't tell the rest of us. But 2008 gutted that fund, right? I don't know when the next 2008 is going to be, and so that's why that report is really important to me, that the stewardship of our hard-earned saving, right, for the fiscal safety and security of the city of Chattanooga is one of the number one reasons why this council even exists. So I definitely want to have that before we move to a vote. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Chairman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mandy or Chief, either one, so I probably don't live in the budget as much as I should, but going back in my mind towards the end of our budget discussions for, well, this fiscal year, I remember we drew some out of reserves at that time to put into some capital projects. And I was thinking that, you know, at that time, it drew our reserves down to somewhere in the 20s, is what I had in my mind. But now I see, and what I'm asking is for you to help me to understand so that I can explain this. I saw that, I think we were at 40, I don't know, somewhere I thought 46%, no, 43%, I guess, we were 43% in our unreserved fund balance. So where did that increase from, I'm going to say somewhere in the 20s to 43, where did that come from that we realized, oh, we've got 43%, not 26%?
Sure, do you have the, let's see. I think we have a slide that speaks to it. So here, so at the end of FY25, or FY24, sorry, general fund balance reserve was at the 43%, going from 152.9 down to the 117.9. That reduction is the 35 million that was originally budgeted to pull out of reserves. So that got us down to 35%. And then from there, this additional 29.9 million will get us down to the 26%, 0.6%.
Well, and I don't know, maybe I just got a bad memory. For some reason, I was thinking that number was lower in the FY25 budget than the 35%. And I don't remember what the actual number was for the balance, but I just know that we took an additional couple of $1 million for some capital needs that we had. And we weren't shaving it right down to the 16%, but it was cutting it, down significantly. I just wondered, so you think that we were at 35% when we spent the additional for capital last year, we were still at 35, we were only at 35%?
What the difference could have been is, I believe, I wasn't here when the original budget for FY25 was adopted, but this FY24 is based on our audited numbers, where before it was maybe the original budget numbers, and then I'm not sure if maybe Frida could speak to that, but I believe now that we've got our audit done for FY24, then maybe the numbers in that first column have been updated to the actual FY24, where before they were a projected number, which would have impacted that percentage.
So Javed is standing up.
Yes.
Is that what happened? Did we get audited number that showed that revenue higher, that percentage of revenue higher?
Yeah, actually what happened is this, that if you look at the first slide, which is 152 million, when we were budgeting at the back in about 4 or 5 months ago that we were anticipating that it's going to be about, at that time, is going to be 144 million. So we did better than what we expected because of the revenues were more and we spend less. So that basically the number, if I look at the slide when we were doing the FY25 budget, we took it down to 30% at that time. Ultimately came to 35.05.
So we took it down to 35 of what we anticipated it was going to be, but the actual was more.
Yes.
Is that what
yes.
you're saying?
Actual revenue came in more and expenditure less, so that means we added into the reserve.
Okay.
So that adding of the reserve give us an opportunity to do this. I hope that makes sense.
Sure. Okay.
I'd be happy to stand here and respond to any other question. My wife said
That's
that.
up to you, but.
My wife was saying to me, why you don't stand up and say something? And I said, because I'm camera shy. And she said, I understand that.
Good, Chairman.
I'm good, thank you.
Councilman Ledford?
So, thank you, Chairman. My final question would probably be to, now they're at 26.16, and we did have this discussion. Thank you, Chairman, for reminding us of this. We had the discussion about where we were going to land with a number that was, I guess, comfortable, if you would. Is this the floor that we're looking at, that we feel comfortable as a city? Obviously, we're seeing numbers of 13, 14, 15%. I think from a conservative standpoint, and given this current state of just the world economy, having a little, I feel like we're somewhere where we need to be kind of cut it off.
So are you asking,
stand.
or are we going to come back to you and ask for additional
I'm
reserves?
I'm asking, are we going to lower this again?
I think if you look at the policy, the city adopted the policy of 15%, which if you look at all the best practices, maybe it should be a little higher. If you ask some of the bond rating agencies, I know Fitch floated out there, the 7.5% is kind of the number they want to benchmark off of. I think the work the GFOA is doing will give us a little more guidance on where the city specifically will fall based on some of these risk factors and revenue fluctuations. So we're really looking to see what they come back with. But again, best practice being 16%. The cushion we have now, I think, is comfortable. But I'd like to see Councilwoman Hill said what GFOA comes back with as far as the city-specific risks and things that we face as a city would be. And I don't know if John knows. No, that's fine.
So probably important conversation to continue in the next budget as well as to where, what this number should be to maintain some sort of, I guess, if you will, comfortable position. I think that is definitely warranted, so. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, you got it. Thank you, sir. Vice Chair?
Thank you. I'd just like to put a fine point on that. When we were doing our budgeting process in the last fiscal year, one of the things we talked about, I pulled up the slides on May 21st, we had the conversation about reserves, which was why the council, we looked at benchmark cities. We saw that we had, at that point, slightly more than some benchmark cities, significantly less than some others, and that we as a council need to decide on what is our shared value for a rainy day fund, right? And obviously, years ago, a council decided that it was 15%. The economy has changed a lot since then, and this council, or in the next fiscal year, the new council may, I think it would be wise for this council to make that a priority, to set our new standards so that we aren't always having to have this conversation. Not dissimilar from the conversations that we have around pilot policy or TIF policy. You know, once we make a decision and write it down, if we can return back to that, we know that we're practicing good fiscal management. So thank you for saying that, and I agree and do expect that this report will be very useful, and I'm glad we will have it before we have our public hearing. Thank you.
Good, Vice Chair. All right. I see no further light. So in closing of this committee meeting today, let me just say thank you, Ms. Green, Mr. Porter, Mr. Wilson as well, and Chief. There's a lot more work that went into this deck than just the amount of time we went into today. Ever since the chairman so graciously put me in this position, It wasn't but a day before I found myself in meetings for hours to go over this. But it was great. I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if everybody else in that meeting enjoyed it as much as I did, but I did enjoy it. And I feel like what is presented today has certainly come a long way, not just from when you started, but even as recently as then. So again, thank you all for the amount of work that actually went into this and the thought processes to make sure that we were utilizing the money efficiently, correctly, and it's going to be most responsive to the needs that we're hearing from our constituency. So with that, I'll just add one more. Ms. Green, you've taken over a few different positions, it seems like, here at the city, and moved into this one you're currently in pretty recently. And I just want to say that my interactions with you, and specifically just recently dealing with this budget, have been outstanding.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. I had a ton of questions, hours worth, and it wasn't a couple of days, maybe, that I had answers to them all, which never has happened before, much less by the time it was time to vote. So again, thank you very much for the work that you're doing in the city and helping lead us in your current role. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I just want to thank you all for your consideration, for utilization of these funds. We're very excited to be able to present this to you today and excited to present the report of what GFOA says. And I really appreciate all of your support and your questions and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do and having an efficient, effective government. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And with that, we will adjourn finance and move into Parks and Public Works.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to Parks and Public Works Committee. Can we accept the minutes? Okay. Madam Clerk. Let me put my glasses on. 8. I gotta put my glasses on. I can't see that. Public Works. Is that 8? 8A. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
An ordinance closing and abandoning the unopened right-of-way in the 300 block of Ann Street as detailed on the attached maps.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As this is the only item on the Parks and Public Works agenda, and I have alluded to it twice now in meetings, I wanted to give a little bit more details for my fellow council members and the public. This abandonment has opened up an interesting line of conversation. We in District 2, and I know in other parts of the city, as we've been building out, are very concerned about our slopes and our tree canopy. And this request to abandon an unopened right-of-way was a way that a developer made a suggestion that if they could do that, they might be able to realign the way they would build some property and be able to preserve the tree canopy. And in that conversation, I said to them, what about if we go ahead and make that official, that that tree canopy is going to be preserved? And so we're having some very good faith negotiations around how we preserve that canopy long-term. Likely will be with a conservation easement, and my hope is that the way that we structure this this paperwork, as it were, will be something that we'll be able to use in similar situations all over the city in the future. So that's why we've been waiting a little bit on this, but I think it's going to be a great outcome in the end. So that's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That concludes Parks Public Works Committee. Let me say this while I'm on the mic. I want to thank Jeremy, man. Kendrick Lamar says, they're not like us. You're not like any other administrator who's come through the ranks of Public Works. You're genuine, your swag, and your thoughtfulness. Your thoughtfulness and all the kind words you send to your staff. Man, that's incredible what you do. Thank you and continue the good work. Appreciate it. And also, folks in Chattanooga have been telling me they love how the services are speedy now. Thanks, continue the good work. Thank you, brother. Thank you. This concludes Parks and Public Work. We're gonna meet at 5:15.
Adjourn to 5:15.
Adjourn to 5:15. Reset.